Is Vladimir Putin trying to shape another Soviet Union, or does he want to become another Tsar? These days we hear all the time from Western media that Putin's Russia is doing the impossible. He wants to start World War III or to expand Russian borders into Europe. But is that all the truth? For analyzing this war, we have to look at it also from Russian perspective. Stay with us. We are going to unfold some interesting points and aspects of this crisis. So, without further ado, let's go. Vladimir Putin's Russia feels insecure and desperate in face of NATO's expansion to Eastern Europe and to its borders. Actually, NATO was formed during Cold War in the first place for confronting Moscow's ambitions. So I think it is normal that even now Moscow sees some threats from this organization under leadership of US. And this is it. We don't know if US and Europe knew the outcome and deliberately drove Russia to this point, or they were just too confident that Kremlin would never choose this risky path, but the result is the same. Actually, Russia's main strength is military power, not economy or nor cultural influence. So it is normal that if you put too much pressure on this bear, it will eventually use its only strength, which is military power. Kremlin believes that US and Europe are weaker than ever, and their main concern now is China. So Russia thinks that it is the best time, actually the right time, to get involved in this crisis before the next administration comes to White House. And at the same time, in Russia's calculations, they can force US and NATO to accept what they want. But what they really want, they want NATO to stop expanding to Eastern Europe countries like Ukraine or Georgia, and they also want to show who's the boss. Ukraine, in Russia's thoughts, should become a buffer zone between them and NATO. Putin believes that a multipolar world would be better for all. So he wants to settle things with US once and for all, and he will continue this path no matter what cost it may have. Ukraine is critical for Moscow. Actually, Ukraine is the most important post-Soviet republic for Kremlin, not only because of cultural ties and mutual history, but because it has geopolitical importance and long borders with Russia. Ukraine's totally pro-Western attitude as of 2014 and the Maidan revolution made it not only anti-Russia, but Russia's main concern in Europe. In another word, Russia considers Ukraine to be the closest country to itself, but now it's farther than anyone. Ukraine should have chosen a more balanced relations between Russia and the West, but instead it chose to become the prey in their war. Just imagine, if Ukraine had not insisted on Russian adversary, how could Moscow decide to start a war against it? Anyway, the impossible has happened, and Russia is using force to get what it wants. We cannot predict how long the war would be, but we can now talk about the consequences. This dangerous decision of Moscow has once more united almost all European countries and many other countries in the world under US leadership. And this is not what Moscow wanted, really. It seems that Russia is struggling to finish off Ukrainian government, and the invasion maybe did not go as it was planned. The longer it takes, the more harm will get Russian image around the world and the confidence of the military personnel. Besides, Russia will have to use more force and lethal equipments to get what it wants, and this is even worse. Also, some say Russia is deliberately giving more time to Zelensky government to surrender before more blood spilled. Most of Ukrainian people and many inside Russia are furious with this decision. So Russia may finally get Kiev and win the war, but it actually lost moral support from many inside Ukraine and Russia, and this is bad for them. Even reaching an agreement with Ukrainian government does not mean it will be everlasting, because Russia will have to control all next Ukrainian governments with precise accuracy to make sure they will not pursue this policy again. And I think it's not practical for Russia to do it always. Foreign investors will flee Russian economy in a near future, and Russian business outside of this country will also be hit by hard economic sanctions from Western countries, especially US. So, economy of Russia will gradually go down. Although this war have lots of costs for Russia, but it also damaged reputation of US and NATO in Europe, because US and NATO promised and signed to help Ukraine in wars to come, but they didn't. Well, it's a sad fact, but continuation of war is actually in the interest of many countries, important actors. US and Europe are especially interested in this because, first of all, they would like to see their biggest rival in Europe, Russia, involved in a long-term war that makes it weaker even economically and also makes its military weaker. And then the more the war takes, European countries will get more united under US leadership, and even new countries in Europe will be persuaded to get into NATO, for example, Sweden. And then US and some European countries would sell tons of military equipments to other European countries and other countries around the world because of the Russian threat. And then there is Russian friends, for example, China, which is also interested in continuation of this war, because first of all, the longer this war takes, the closer Russia will be to China, and it will be even more dependent on Chinese economy. And at the same time, China may also consider invading Taiwan in near future. So it would like to see US distracted to another big war on European territory. Here we have also Iran, which is a close ally of Russia. Iran is also interested. First of all, Iran also would like to see US distracted from Middle East and focused on Eastern Asia and on Eastern Europe, on Russia and China. And then in this situation, there is a feeling that US and European countries are ready to give even to make more concessions in Vienna nuclear talks with Iran and to give Iran what it wants, because they don't want another big war and more tensions at the same time in Middle East. And they want to focus more on Russia and China. And then Iran also would like to replace Russia's energy, I mean gas and oil, in European market in the long term. And the final word is controlling Russia by force was impossible for US, but pushing it to bloody wars and weakening its position, economy and reputation, I think was more desirable for White House. But this war is different. It will change current international political structures in coming years, this is a beginning of an end of many things.